So I'm back home now in my Dodge Caliber. It's working again. Everything's buttoned up. It looks good. It runs nice. My fuel mileage went up. The check engine light's not on anymore. It's quieter. It doesn't smell like gasoline fumes in here. Everything's been good. But I wanted to tell a little bit about the story of how it ended up coming back together, because I'm a little angry about how it all went down, and I'm much happier now. But as you know, I had it towed to the Dodge dealership. It was Perry Chrysler Dodge in San Diego, and they seemed really nice, really happy to help. I explained to the service writer what I had done, what needed to be done. I did show up with a trunk full of parts, but they were very concise. I had the bolts properly placed with the things that they bolted down, and everything looked pretty easy to go back the way that it should. And had you followed the procedure of how to dismantle something, you would know what parts had been removed and what would be expected to be sitting there waiting to get put back in. And he sounded pretty easygoing, like, yeah, we'll be able to handle this, no problem. So I dropped it off early in the morning. It was a 7 a.m. appointment. I work nights, so I went through the rest of the day, and then I took a nap and went to work that night. And then the next morning I took another nap, got up for my midday hangout, and then around 3 o'clock I called him thinking, okay, it's been, nearly 2 business days at this point. I should at least have a quote. And he very abruptly just said, oh, I'll call you right back. He sounded busy. So I said, okay, fine. I went to bed, and at about 5:30 he gave me a call, and I woke up in bed and answered the phone, and he said, all right, I've got everything all worked out. I've got your, how long it's going to take, what parts we're going to need, little things like that. Because I did have a broken vacuum hose that was going to need to get fixed. And so I knew there'd be a little bit of things here and there. But then he said the number. The number. He had the balls to tell me that this job was going to cost $1,300 and change. And I immediately was awake, right? I mean, I just gotten done with a nap, waiting to go to nights, and I lost it. I said, no, you need to break this down for me. What in the possible world could cause this job to be $1,300 plus? And he said, well, I'll break it down for you. He's gonna have to do 8 hours of labor for the exhaust manifold. I was like, let me stop you right there. That is absolutely absurd, okay? Because you're talking to a guy who has had this job done on my car before, right? This isn't the first time this exhaust manifold has cracked. The original factory one cracked about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was able to take it to a private shop, and they charged me for 3.5 hours of labor to do the job in its entirety. I've brought you a car that's had half the job done already, and I get that I shouldn't get half off because I've brought you a big box of parts, and I get that that sucks, but to say that it's going to take you twice as long, more than twice as long, to do the half the job that I've left you to do is just astronomically insane. There's just no good reason to quote me something like that. So I'm going to do some research. I'm going to find some other shops and see what I need to do, because something tells me that they're not going to be able to come down less than half their original quote to do this job, even though that's what they ought to have done. So he was still a nice guy, amicable about that. He said, you go ahead and do your research. I'll talk to my mechanic, see what was going on in his head. He did mention he was going to have to remove the engine. And I was like, I'm going to have to stop you again right there, because that's also ridiculous. There's no written procedure for this procedure that references taking the engine out. I've seen it from Mitchell, I've seen it from AllData, and I've seen it from Chilton, and not one of them says anything about taking the engine out of the car. I realize that might work, that might do the job, but that is not how it is called out to do that. And one of the reasons I went to the dealership is because I thought that they would do it right? They are Dodge trained mechanics working on a Dodge. They should be able to know what everything is and how to put it back the way it ought to go. But again, he said, yeah, no problem. I'll ask him. Maybe we'll see if there's something we can work out, and you call me and I'll talk to you tomorrow. So I call a few different places, including my father, who's a mechanic, and he says, yeah, that is a little ridiculous. He did explain that mechanics don't like when you pull up with a busted car and a bunch of box of parts saying, hey, put together my big terrible mistake, good luck. I understand that does suck. I wouldn't want to put together something that I hadn't pulled apart, because I don't know what they were doing when they were doing it. But again, more than twice. I mean, to take half that time and say, okay, let me try and figure out what he did, and then take the other half of the time to go ahead and put it back together seemed reasonable to me, not double and then some. So what I ended up doing was talking to the NEX, which is the Naval Exchange. They have an auto shop. It's something that only the Navy can go to, so I won't link to this place because unless you're an Armed Forces member, you can't use this shop. But they do good work, and their labor rate is $75 an hour, which isn't unheard of in the automotive industry at a private shop. I mean, no dealer's going to give you that. The dealer at Dodge was $120, but $75 is not unheard of. I called them up, gave them the exact same situation. I said, hey, I've got this problem. My car needs to be towed in. It's going to need to have this exhaust manifold put back in, and Dodge is really trying to screw me over and charge me for a whole lot of labor. They said that they would go ahead and do it for the 3.5 hours that the book calls out as that job being, which is crazy because that's what the book called out the first time I had it done, and that's what they did it for. And so, great. Sounds perfect. So I roll into Dodge, no call, no warning. I just walk up to the service writer, smile on my face, trying to be happy, nice guy, don't want to ruin this guy's day, because it's clear to me that the mechanic just doesn't want to do the work. He opened up that trunk and he opened up the hood and said, you know what, I don't think I want to do this. I don't know what I'm going to come across. I don't know what's going to happen. I'll just tell him I need 8 hours to do it to make it worth my day and walk back to my station. And so I was not going to accept that. And I pretty much told the service writer that, and he's like, yeah, you know, if you've got another shop who's going to do it for 3.5 hours, I can't blame you here. I'll release the car, no charge, go ahead. So I called a tow truck, they came and got it. USAA covered both of my tows, by the way, and I was very explicit with them that this was a second tow for the same problem that I had the first time around, and they said, yeah, we don't care, we'll cover it. So hopefully that doesn't hurt my insurance. But it was nice that those tows were free, and they were prompt. So I showed up to the NEX, turned the car in. I explained the situation again, show them the box of parts, show them the engine bay and what needs to be done, and they're like, yeah, we'll take care of it. So I left it with them. They quoted me the regular 3.5 hours. I mentioned that I still need that vacuum leak fixed, and they're like, yeah, we'll look at that, see what we can do about that too. And then the next day I went to Disneyland. I dropped it off late in the evening for them, so I expected that they probably weren't going to get to it. But the next day when I was in Disneyland, they called me and said, hey, your car's all done. We did have to charge you 1 extra hour of labor because the bolts that you had for your exhaust manifold were a little stripped, and it took them a little while to straighten them out and get them in there. Plus, he did fix the vacuum leak, and we replaced the coolant in your engine, so because I had to drain a bunch of it anyway. So that all went really well. Said the total was $355. Pay when you show up. I'm like, great, I just saved $1,000 because that's what Dodge was going to charge me. $1,300 and change, and I got the job done for $300 the next day. So I'm still just blown away that this dealership wanted nearly 4 times as much money to do this job. It just boggles my mind that they're getting away with this. So I hate to, I hate to down talk a dealership. Usually dealers do good work. I wouldn't expect them to screw you over. But in this case, it was just crystal clear. That's what they wanted to do. They said this guy showed up with a car on a trailer. He's screwed. We'll charge him whatever we want, and he'll probably take it. Well, not today. So here I am in my car. It's running great again. I'm going to love it some more for the next 3 or 4 more years, and then eventually I'm going to do something fun with it because it won't be my daily driver anymore. And I think I might try my hand at a little bit of private racing with it. Just I'm not expecting to win anything, but it'll be fun to drive and beat the hell and get my money's worth out of it. But thought I'd update you on